Thanks to our friends at The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/ASYM for the top 10 stocks to buy right now. One of the more intriguing companies to me in electric vehicles right now is Fisker. Now, the company has introduced its Ocean vehicle that is in production and is growing, but there was a couple of new vehicles announced last week that really caught my eye. They're a really solid price point. I think the design is really compelling. The question is, can Fisker actually produce them and generate a profit? I'm going to get into some of those details, but I want to cover the vehicles and what we know about them right now. First, my name is Travis Hoyam. Thanks for watching Asymmetric Investing. Please subscribe here on YouTube for all my content. And if you like this video, check out my newsletter, Asymmetric Investing, in the show notes. And I'll just highlight first the Alaska pickup truck. This is the Alaska pickup truck. Says that it's going to be coming out in 2025. You can see that it's a relatively small pickup, 4-seater. It does have 2 rows, but a relatively small bed, so it would compete with something like the Maverick. Motor Trend had a nice set of pictures here, so I'll just go through a few of those. Looks like there would be 5 seats. And I think ultimately a pretty compelling design, especially from the exterior standpoint. The interior does kind of look like they just put a couple of iPads on for screens here, but maybe that would change over time. But what's interesting here is the price point that Fisker is already talking about. Something like the Rivian is already selling for over $70,000. But the Alaska, they're talking about producing this and selling it for $45,400 before incentives. So in the US, that would mean that the vehicle would sell for right around $38,000. That is a pretty compelling price point in the truck market. Trucks can easily go for $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. So that could be a big win if Fisker is actually able to produce this vehicle and sell it at that price point. The other 2 vehicles that they announced, I'll cover the Ronin quickly. This is going to be a much more expensive vehicle, $385,000. So would not be the kind of vehicle that they would sell a lot of, but would be more of a performance vehicle. But for a category of 1 is pretty appropriate way to categorize this. The more interesting vehicle to me from a volume perspective would be the Pear. Again, not a lot of information about exactly what this is going to be outside of the fact that the starting price point will be $29,000 before incentives. So again, in the US, you're talking about a vehicle in the low $20,000 range. That is extremely compelling for any company that's going to be able to make a vehicle that cheaply. Deliveries are expected to begin in 2025. And you can see from some of these images here, it's going to be a little bit more of an economy vehicle, a little bit smaller. If we go to this Car and Driver article, you can see that it's a little bit more of a hatchback design, but has some of the similar features that we've seen with a lot of electric vehicles, big wheels, and I think a pretty appealing exterior, especially at that price point. But here's the challenge for Fisker. We're talking about vehicles that could be very attractive in 2025. So 2 years at least from now, probably more like 2026. So that would be 3 years from now. This is what I'm looking at. Cash and investments, $470 million on the balance sheet as of the end of last quarter. Total debt, $714 million. Enterprise value of $2.3 billion. Now, if we go over to some of the financials, the cash flow statement is what I'm looking at most closely. And this is cash from operations. So that's what this section is right here. Cash from operations, negative $408.9 million. That means that Fisker is burning basically as much cash as it currently has on the balance sheet. I did mention that deliveries for the Ocean vehicle are beginning, but now they're developing at least 3 new vehicles. They're going to have to pay for those kind of development costs, tooling, any other startup costs and sales costs. The challenge is going to be having enough cash to get there. With the debt already on the balance sheet, it may mean that Fisker is going to have to actually sell stock. That could dilute shareholders. Here's a couple of other items. Cash from investing activities, negative $28 million in the past year. And then financing activities, this would be the issuance of stock. Over the past year, $314.7 million worth of stock issued, and there's billions of dollars worth of stock issued if we go back to 2021. The challenge for Fisker isn't designing a vehicle that is appealing. I think that's actually gone really well. The Alaska pickup truck, I think, could be a great pickup truck, especially at that price point. The Ocean SUV is really appealing. The Pear is a great price point if they can actually make it for that. And Fisker actually has a really interesting business model, outsourcing most of the manufacturing and then not owning things like service centers or dealerships. They're working with partners on that. So I really find the business model to be very interesting. The question for Fisker is, can they get to the point where they're actually generating enough cash to be a going concern or a company that can operate for years in the future? Right now, that doesn't appear to be the case. They're burning a few $100 million a year, only have a few $100 million in cash on the balance sheet, so probably going to need to raise more cash until things like ocean deliveries pick up and we see volumes increase for new vehicles like Alaska or the Pear. So a lot of moving parts. I think this is one of these stocks that probably falls in the too hard pile because we just don't have a great way to value a company like this. And it's possible that the best outcome for Fisker is actually being acquired by somebody. The company may not have enough cash and enough resources, whether that's existing on the balance sheet or raising new money from investors, to reach this goal of actually having multiple vehicles at a very low price point, because those are not going to be extremely high margin vehicles either. But this is absolutely a stock that is on my watch list because of that design prowess and the unique business model. I think that's what really potentially separates Fisker. So, one that I'll be covering here if you want to follow me on asymmetric investing. And also leave your comments about these two new vehicles in the comments section below. I'm curious to hear what you think. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you here next time.